Most gamblers think they're about even, and that's the lie. Not always intentionally or always out loud, but in their head, most gamblers believe some version of this. I'm only down a little bit. I've won a decent amount too. I'm not up, but I'm probably close to even. And that belief is one of the most dangerous parts of gambling because the data says something completely different. A study of 700,000 online gamblers found that only about 4% of people actually withdrew more money than they deposited. 4%, not 40, not 25, 4. But if you asked a room full of sports bettors how they're doing lifetime, half of them will probably say I'm about even, and that gap between what people believe and what is actually happening is where gambling addiction lives. If you're new here, my name's Joe. I'm a recovering gambling addict. I haven't placed a bet in 2 years, and I started this channel because I don't think enough people are being honest about what modern gambling actually is. I was deep in it, especially with sports betting. The usual live betting, chasing losses, thinking I was smarter than the app, thinking I could dig myself out, and that's why this study hits home so hard. Because I don't just see the numbers when I read this, I see myself. I see the guy who would swear he was probably close to even while constantly reloading my betting account. I see the guy who remembered every big win, but somehow forgot about the 400 smaller losses that paid for it. So today, I want to talk about one of the biggest lies in gambling. Researchers looked at 717,724 online gamblers over a 5-year period. They tracked gambling deposits and gambling withdrawals across major online gaming operators, and only about 4% of online gamblers withdrew more money than they deposited. Now, depending on how you read the study, the exact numbers listed around 4.6%, but honestly, whether it's 4% or 4.6, the message is still the same. Almost nobody is winning. And that should be shocking. Not because we didn't know gambling is built against you. Everybody knows the phrase, the house always wins. But sports betting has convinced people that that doesn't apply to them. Casino gambling feels like gambling. You know you're going to lose. Slots feel like gambling. Blackjack feels like gambling with a little bit more control. Sports betting feels like knowledge. It feels like research or having an edge. It feels like staring at injury reports, following the beat writers on Twitter, knowing the team's matchups, their pace of play. You convince yourself you're not actually gambling, that you're investing or finding value. You're just beating the bad lines and playing the numbers. But according to this study, almost everyone is losing anyway. And here's the question that actually matters. If almost everyone is losing, why do so many gamblers think they're close to even? And I think the answer is simple. Your brain remembers wins emotionally, but it records losses like background noise. You remember turning $50 into $900. You remember texting the group chat. You remember feeling like a genius. But you don't remember the random $25 losses or the $50 reloads. But your bank account remembers. DraftKings remembers. The data remembers. And when researchers actually track deposits and withdrawals, the story becomes brutally clear. Most people are not winning. Most people aren't even close to even. Gambling doesn't always destroy you in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it just quietly leaks money out of your life for years. Every gambler has a mental accounting system, and it's usually complete garbage. Because when you win, you count it, and when you lose, you rationalize it. It wasn't your fault because the coach made a bad play call or the quarterback threw a pick. That is all just justification and a reason to pretend like that loss didn't exist. Every deposit counts, every reload counts, every chase bet counts, every I'm just putting $20 in counts. And what gambling does better than almost anything is make you feel like only the wins are real. Losses feel temporary and wins feel permanent. That's why people say I just need one good run, or I've been so close, or I'm due, I know I can get it back, I'm not that far off. But the study shows the opposite. Most people are not one good hit away. Most people are just participating in a system where the overwhelming majority lose. And the longer they play, the more the math usually wins. This is also where modern gambling is different, because losing money through an app doesn't feel like losing money. It feels digital and fake, like a credit and debit system. You make a deposit, you place a bet, you reload, you get a bonus bet or a boost, you cash out early and roll that into something else, you hedge, you move money around, and after a while it just stops feeling like it's real money. That's by design. The easier they make it to deposit, the less time you have to think. The more markets they offer, the more opportunities they give you to chase. And that's where sports betting becomes dangerous, because it's not just Sunday football anymore, it's everything. And when gambling's always available, your losses can always be fixed by the next bet. That's psychological poison. There's always another bet and another chance. Always another way to convince yourself that you're not done just yet. And the study wasn't just about whether people win or lose. It was also about what happens when online gambling expands. Researchers looked at policy changes around online sports betting and online casino gambling, and they found something really important. Legalizing online casino gambling increased tax revenue. No surprise there. But what it also did was increased irresponsible gambling and gambling helpline calls, which matters. Because the gambling industry loves to talk about tax revenue. That's always the pitch. States get money, consumers get freedom, the black market gets reduced, everything is regulated, everyone wins. But again, the study shows another side. Yes, states can collect more tax revenue, but gambling harms increase too. And the paper found that low-income gamblers were most likely to increase irresponsible gambling after policy changes. That should bother people, because gambling is sold as entertainment, but for a lot of people, it just becomes hope. And hope is most dangerous when someone is financially desperate, when their rent is high and credit card debt is up, their groceries are expensive, owning a home feels impossible, they might have student loans hanging over their heads, and then the sportsbook says, turn $10 into $1,000. A lot of people aren't gambling because life is going great. They're gambling because they want life to change. And that's a completely different psychological animal. Real quick, if gambling has stopped feeling like entertainment and started feeling like something you're hiding or chasing or trying to manage on your own, I partnered with Birch's Health because they specialize in gambling addiction treatment. They offer confidential support from clinicians who actually understand sports betting, online casino behavior, and the cycle of chasing losses. Taking one small step can change your life. So if you're looking for help, check out Birch's Health through the link in the description. You don't have to wait until everything falls apart to talk to someone. One of the reasons this 4% number matters so much is because sports bettors genuinely believe that they're different. And I get it. I did too. I wasn't pulling a slot machine or sitting at the roulette table. I was watching sports. I knew sports. I played sports through college. I understood the teams and matchups and how momentum and injuries can work. I understood coaching. I thought that knowledge actually meant something. And here's the uncomfortable truth. It does mean something, just not enough. That's what makes sports betting so seductive. You can be right about the game and still lose the bet. Sports betting gives you just enough control to believe that you actually have it, but not enough actual control to reliably win. That's the trap. You don't feel like you're playing against a machine. You feel like you're playing against your own intelligence. So when you lose, you don't think this system is designed for me to lose. You think I made a bad pick. I'll be sharper tomorrow, or I should have known better. There's another part of this that people need to sit with. Winning bettors often get limited or throttled. Basically, they're told that you can't bet like that anymore. If you lose consistently, you are valuable to the sports books. If you win consistently, you become a problem. That tells you what this business is. This is not a marketplace rooting for your success. It's not investing. It's not financial empowerment. And it's not beating the books for 99% of people. The business model needs losses. And not just any loss, repeated and consistent losses. People believing the next bet might fix the last one. That's why the I'm about even lie is so profitable. Because if someone clearly knew they were down 18,000, they might stop. But if they think they're probably down a few grand, they keep going because, I would have spent that money anyways. If they think they've had bad luck, they keep going. If they think they're close, they keep going. If they think they're due, they keep going. The illusion is the product. And we have to talk about parlays, because parlays are basically the perfect product for people who think that they're close. You don't lose a 6-leg parlay, you miss by 1 leg. You don't get destroyed mathematically, you are right there. And that feeling is powerful because your brain doesn't process it as a loss. It processes it as evidence. But this is exactly why parlays are so dangerous. They create this highlight reel of almost. And almost is one of the most addictive feelings in gambling. Almost keeps you emotionally attached and makes you believe. Almost turns losing into actual motivation. And the sportsbooks know this. That's why everything is built around same-game parlays now. The apps don't just want you betting on who wins. They want you building a story in your head where this player scores and this player gets 7 rebounds, That team wins and the total goes over, everyone gets involved. The more legs you add, the more emotionally invested you become. But because the payout is huge, you convince yourself it's worth it. And then when it misses by one leg, you don't feel like the app beat you. You feel like you almost beat the app. And when it misses by one leg, you don't feel like the app beat you. You feel like you almost beat the app, and that distinction is everything. Most people picture gambling addiction as this dramatic thing, like losing your house, maxing out every credit card, stealing money, going bankrupt, and yeah, that happens. But for a lot of people, that damage starts much quieter. It starts with not saving. It starts with being paid well, but still being broke. It starts with avoiding your bank account. It starts with floating bills and overdrafts, and it starts with moving money around. It starts with not going to dinner because you're afraid your card might decline, but somehow still finding $100 to deposit. That was one of the craziest parts for me. I could be too broke for real life, but never too broke to bet. Too broke to go out, too broke to buy something normal, too broke to relax, too broke to feel safe, but never too broke to reload my account. That is gambling addiction. It rearranges your priorities, and then it convinces you that the thing destroying your finances is also the only thing that can fix them. The study also looked at irresponsible gambling. Basically, how much of someone's income was going towards gambling, and the numbers were wild. A huge percentage of gamblers were spending more than responsible gambling guidelines suggest during the months that they gambled. Some were spending more than 5% of monthly income, some more than 10%, some more than 15%. And when you hear responsible gambling, it sounds clean and manageable. Set a limit, take a break, know when to stop. But addiction does not work like a budgeting app. When you're chasing losses, those limits feel temporary. And that's why the public conversation is so far behind. We keep treating gambling like it's only about personal responsibility. But these products are engineered to be constant, emotional, fast, and frictionless. And then when people get hurt, we act shocked. Like, how did this happen? Well, it happened because the product is doing exactly what it was built to do. Keep people engaged, keep people betting, and keep people coming back. This study should be a wake-up call because it cuts through all the noise. It doesn't care about your group chat. It doesn't care about your lock of the day. It doesn't care about your winning screenshot. It asks one simple question. Did more money come out than went in? And for almost everyone, that answer was no. That's the part gamblers hate. Because gambling lets you build a story, and the data removes that. The story says, I'm pretty good at this. The data says you're losing. The story says I've had a bad run. The data says you deposited more than you withdrew. And that's brutal, but it's also freeing. Because once you stop believing you're the exception, you can finally see the system clearly. And I'll be honest, I told myself this lie constantly. I never wanted to know the real number. I didn't want to add up deposits. I never looked at my win-loss statements on the apps because I knew it would be bad. I didn't even look at my bank statements. I didn't want to know what I had lost and how much I had wagered. Because as long as I didn't know the number, I could keep the fantasy alive. I could tell myself it wasn't that bad or that I was close or I'd climb my way out of it. And that's why I think so many gamblers avoid the truth. Because knowing the real number removes the illusion. And gambling addiction needs an illusion to survive. The next bet doesn't erase the damage, it usually just adds to it. And if you're deep in it, that is one of the hardest things to accept. The thing you are using to escape is probably the thing that's keeping you trapped. And I want to be clear, this video is not about calling gamblers stupid. It's not about shaming people, and it's not about acting like I'm better than anyone. I was the person that I'm talking about. I was the guy who thought he was different. I was the guy who thought he understood the board and who thought the next deposit made sense. So I'm not saying this from a place of judgment. I'm saying it because I know how convincing the lie feels. And I know how hard it is to admit the truth. But if only about 4% of people are actually positive, then a lot of people watching this are probably not the exception. And I don't say that to be harsh. I say that because accepting it might save you years of damage. Most gamblers think they're about even. The data says they're probably not, and that's the entire problem. Because gambling doesn't just take money. It distorts memory and confidence and hope. It makes wins feel huge, but losses feel temporary. It makes almost feel meaningful. It makes chasing feel logical. It makes destruction feel like strategy. And then one day, You look up and you realize you weren't building anything. You were just trying to get back to a place you kept moving further away from. So if you gamble and you think you're about even, I'd challenge you to actually check. Look at your deposits and withdrawals and win-loss statements. Zoom out and look at the full picture, not the highlight reel. Because the scariest part of gambling is not always how much you lose. Sometimes it's how long you can keep losing while still believing you're close. And if this hits home, subscribe to the channel. I talk about gambling addiction, sports betting, recovery, and what these apps are doing to people in real life. And if you're struggling, don't wait until it gets worse to reach out for help, because the lie that you're one bet away from fixing everything might be the thing